Imagine this. A power-hungry HOA president hands over your private ranch lake to her scheming cousin, then sicks the cops on you when you push back. But what if you could flip the script and dissolve the entire HOA in one savage overnight move? Stick around for a tale of petty tyranny, legal loopholes, and sweet, satisfying revenge that left a whole neighborhood reeling. If you're obsessed with HOA nightmares, Karen meltdowns, and property wars that end in epic takedowns, smash that like button right now, subscribe for more wild stories like this, and hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into the drama. In the sprawling outskirts of a quiet Texas suburb, where manicured lawns met the rugged edges of ranch land, lived a man named Jack Harlan. Jack had inherited his family's old ranch property years ago, a vast spread that included a pristine private lake, teeming with fish and surrounded by ancient oaks. It was his sanctuary, a place where he escaped the grind of city life, hosting barbecues for friends and teaching his kids to fish on lazy weekends. But trouble brewed when the neighborhood's homeowners association, led by the infamous Karen Whitaker, decided to flex its muscles in ways that would upend everything. Karen was the quintessential HOA tyrant, always armed with a clipboard, a scowl, and an unquenchable thirst for control. She patrolled the streets like a self-appointed sheriff, issuing fines for overgrown hedges, unauthorized mailboxes, and even the wrong shade of beige on garage doors. Her reign had turned the once friendly community into a pressure cooker of resentment, with neighbors whispering complaints, but never daring to challenge her directly. Jack, however, had mostly stayed under her radar, his ranch sitting on the fringe of the development. Technically part of the HOA, but operating with a grandfathered independence that irked Karen to no end. The lake, in particular, was a sore spot. It wasn't communal property, but Karen had long eyed it as a potential community asset to boost her status. One sweltering summer afternoon, Jack noticed unusual activity around his lake. Trucks rumbled down the dirt path, unloading kayaks, picnic tables, and even a makeshift dock. Confused, he approached a group of strangers setting up camp, only to learn they were Karen's cousin Earl and his extended family, who claimed the lake had been gifted to them for exclusive use. Earl waved a crumpled permission slip bearing the HOA's letterhead, signed by Karen herself, declaring the lake open for select family recreation as part of a new initiative. Jack's blood boiled. This was his land, his water, inherited fair and square with deeds dating back generations. He stormed over to Karen's immaculate colonial-style home, where she was pruning her award-winning roses with surgical precision. Without a word of greeting, he demanded an explanation, but Karen dismissed him with a wave, insisting the HOA bylaws allowed her to reallocate underutilized resources for the greater good. She claimed Jack's lake was causing environmental concerns due to alleged overuse, though everyone knew it was pristine. When Jack pressed harder, citing his property rights, Karen's face twisted into that signature sneer, and she pulled out her phone to call the authorities, accusing him of trespassing on what she now dubbed HOA-managed territory. Sirens wailed in the distance as deputies arrived, badges gleaming under the sun, ready to enforce Karen's fabricated order. Jack stood his ground, documents in hand, but the cops, swayed by Karen's tearful performance about feeling threatened, escorted him off his own property with a warning to comply or face charges. Humiliated and furious, Jack retreated to his ranch house, poring over old paperwork late into the night. That's when he discovered a forgotten clause in the HOA's founding charter, a loophole buried in legalese that allowed any original property owner to initiate dissolution proceedings if certain conditions were met, like proven mismanagement or overreach. Jack was one of the few remaining originals, his ranch predating the subdivision by decades. As the moon hung high over the lake now dotted with Earl's intrusive setup, Jack began plotting his counterstrike, vowing that Karen's empire of petty rules would crumble before dawn. The next morning, whispers rippled through the neighborhood as Jack's plan took shape. He contacted a lawyer friend specializing in property law, who confirmed the clause's validity. If Jack could rally a simple majority of original owners or their heirs, now a small group amid the newer residents, he could force a vote to dissolve the HOA entirely. Karen, oblivious at first, continued her victory lap, hosting a lake appreciation barbecue for Earl's clan, complete with banners proclaiming her generosity. But Jack worked quietly, knocking on doors of longtime neighbors who'd suffered under Karen's thumb. The elderly couple fined for their vintage birdhouse. The single mom slapped with fees for her kids' chalk drawings on the sidewalk. The veteran whose flagpole was deemed too tall. Each shared horror stories of Karen's meddling, how she'd blocked driveway extensions, banned holiday lights, and even dictated fence heights with tyrannical glee. Jack's evidence dossier grew, including photos of the lake takeover, emails from Karen admitting to the reallocation, and records of her cousin's unauthorized access. As word spread, an underground resistance formed, with neighbors slipping him tips on Karen's other schemes like funneling HOA dues into personal projects. Tensions escalated when Karen caught wind of Jack's inquiries. She ramped up patrols, slapping violation notices on his gate and threatening liens on his ranch if he didn't back down. The cops returned twice more, once for a fabricated noise complaint from Earl's rowdy gatherings, another for supposed vandalism after a storm knocked over one of the cousins' kayaks. Jack endured it all, documenting every encounter, his resolve hardening like steel. By week's end, he'd secured affidavits from enough originals to trigger the dissolution process, filing emergency paperwork with the county clerk under the cover of night. Karen's world began to fracture as notices went out, informing residents of the impending vote. Her face paled when she realized the lake fiasco had been the spark that ignited a full-blown rebellion. Yet even as the neighborhood buzzed with anticipation, Jack knew the real battle was just beginning, for Karen wouldn't go down without unleashing every dirty trick in her arsenal. As the dissolution vote loomed, the community held its breath, waiting to see if Jack's overnight gambit would topple the queen of control once and for all. The vote was scheduled for a tense evening meeting in the community center, a bland building Karen had lorded over like her personal throne room. In the days leading up, she launched a smear campaign, plastering flyers that painted Jack as a greedy recluse hoarding the lake from deserving families, her cousins, of course. Emails flooded inboxes, warning of skyrocketing property taxes and plummeting values. Without the HOA's protective oversight, all laced with veiled threats about future enforcement actions, Earl and his crew amped up their presence at the lake, blasting music and leaving trash strewn about as if daring Jack to react. But Jack played it smart, countering with his own informational packets. Detailed breakdowns of Karen's financial mismanagement, including questionable reimbursements for her rose garden supplies and cousins' maintenance fees that suspiciously matched Earl's bar tabs. Neighbors who'd long simmered in silence now erupted in private forums, sharing tales of Karen's overreach, like the time she demanded a family remove their swing set because it clashed with the aesthetic guidelines, or when she fined a grieving widow for letting her grass grow during mourning. Jack's lawyer orchestrated virtual town halls, educating residents on life post-HOA, freedom from arbitrary rules, lower dues redirected to actual improvements, and the joy of owning one's property without a nosy overseer. As support swelled, Karen grew desperate, cornering allies in supermarkets and coffee shops, promising waivers on fines if they voted her way. The cops became unwitting pawns again when she reported suspicious activity around Jack's ranch, leading to a fruitless search that only fueled outrage. On vote night, the center overflowed with tense faces, Karen at the podium, gavel in hand, declaring the proceedings invalid due to procedural errors. But Jack's team had anticipated this, presenting ironclad filings that forced her to proceed. Ballots were cast anonymously, the air thick with anticipation as counts tallied. When the results flashed, a narrow but decisive majority for dissolution, gasps echoed through the room. Karen's empire dissolved in that instant, the HOA's assets frozen, its authority nullified overnight as per the charter's expedited clause. She stormed out in a huff, vowing appeals, but the damage was done. Residents cheered, toasting to newfound liberty. Jack reclaimed his lake the next dawn, dismantling Earl's encroachments with help from grateful neighbors, the water rippling peacefully once more. Yet whispers lingered of Karen's lingering grudges, hinting that her defeat might birth new schemes in the shadows. As the dust settled, the neighborhood exhaled, but Jack remained vigilant, knowing petty tyrants rarely fade quietly into the night. With the HOA officially dissolved, the suburb transformed almost overnight into a haven of relaxed normalcy. Lawns grew a bit wilder, holiday decorations sparkled without restriction, and neighbors waved without fear of citations. Jack's ranch lake returned to its serene state, fish jumping undisturbed as he hosted a victory gathering for those who'd backed the rebellion, sharing stories of liberation under the stars. Karen, however, refused to concede gracefully. Stripped of her title, she pivoted to petty sabotage, spreading rumors online about Jack's illegal land grab, and filing frivolous complaints with city officials about everything from his fence line to supposed wetland violations. Earl, evicted from the lake, joined her crusade, parking his trucks menacingly near Jack's gate and blasting horns at odd hours. The cops, now weary of the drama, dismissed most calls, but Karen's persistence wore on everyone. Jack, undeterred, fortified his position with fresh surveys and environmental reports proving the lake's private status, while his lawyers slapped cease and desist orders on the duo. As months passed, the former HOA members reveled in their freedom. The elderly couple rebuilt their birdhouse taller than ever. The single mom let her kids chalk the driveway into a rainbow masterpiece, and the veteran flew his flag high without apology. Karen's appeals fizzled in court, judges citing the charter's clear language and her own documented abuses as grounds for upholding the dissolution. In a final twist, audits revealed she'd siphoned funds for personal use, leading to small claim suits from ex-members that drained her savings. Earl slunk away after a towing incident removed his vehicles for blocking access, his family recreation dreams shattered. Jack, reflecting on the ordeal from his lakeside porch, marveled at how one act of overreach had unraveled years of tyranny. The neighborhood, once divided, now bonded over barbecues and block parties, a testament to the power of standing up to bullies. Karen faded into irrelevance, her clipboard gathering dust, while Jack's ranch stood as a symbol of resilience. In the end, the lake's calm waters mirrored the peace that had finally settled over the land, a hard-won victory against the pettiest of foes. If this HOA revenge saga had you hooked from start to finish, drop a like to show your support, subscribe for more insane property drama stories, and turn on notifications so you catch the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the comments.